I never expected her smile to stop me in my tracks, or her presence to change the way I saw everything. The story opens with the male narrator, a 25-year-old graphic designer, quietly observant, slightly awkward but warm, walking into a small, cozy café on a rainy afternoon. The streets outside shimmer with puddles reflecting the soft amber of street lamps, and the air carries the faint scent of rain mixed with roasted coffee beans. He's seeking solitude, a quiet corner to sketch ideas for a freelance project, unaware that today will be different. As he settles into a corner booth, his eyes catch her, the woman he later can't stop thinking about. She's around 42, radiating a calm confidence tempered by a quiet vulnerability that draws him in. Her hair is a soft chestnut with streaks of silver catching the warm cafe light. She's wearing a simple, elegant coat, and her movements carry a grace that speaks of life experience and self-possession. The moment she glances up, their eyes meet briefly, a flicker of recognition, curiosity, or perhaps something unspoken passing between them. He notices small details: the subtle way she tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the light curve of her lips as she smiles politely at the barista, and the gentle steadiness of her hands as she cradles her coffee cup. Each observation, seemingly mundane, feels magnetic to him. He can't help but feel a nervous warmth in his chest, a sensation he hasn't experienced before with anyone his own age. The cafe is filled with quiet murmurs and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine, but when she walks past his table, there's a momentary pause in the rhythm of the room. Her presence is calming yet electric, the kind of tension that exists without words. He notices the faint scent of her perfume, something floral but understated, that lingers in the air long after she's moved. Despite his desire to appear composed, he fidgets slightly with his notebook, stealing glances when he thinks she isn't looking. He wonders if someone her age would even notice someone like him, or if she has a life so full and vibrant that he's just a passing thought. There's a quiet hesitation, a subtle internal struggle, curiosity battling with self-doubt. Their first interaction is brief but charged. She accidentally drops a napkin near his table, and he instinctively reaches to pick it up. Their hands brush, and though it's a fleeting touch, it sends an unexpected warmth through him. Their eyes meet again, and this time, there's a small, knowing smile. No words are exchanged, but an unspoken understanding lingers, a gentle acknowledgement of mutual interest, of a connection neither fully comprehends yet. As he returns to his sketching, his thoughts keep drifting back to her, the tilt of her head as she laughs softly at a private joke, the way she sips her coffee with quiet elegance. There's a sense of anticipation, the subtle spark of something slow burning. And even before any conversation happens, he knows this encounter is the beginning of a story either of them expected, a story that will unfold in quiet, intimate moments, full of unspoken emotions, lingering glances, and the delicate ache of attraction restrained by respect and hesitation. A few days later, the male narrator returns to the same cafe, almost unconsciously. The rain has cleared, leaving the streets glistening in the soft afternoon light, and the air smells faintly of wet pavement and baked pastries. He tells himself it's for the coffee, or the quiet corner he enjoys, but deep down, he knows he's hoping to see her again. She is there, sitting at the same window seat, a book open in front of her. The sunlight filters through the glass, casting a warm glow over her face and highlighting the silver strands in her chestnut hair. She looks up just as he walks past, and their eyes meet. This time, there's a flicker of recognition, soft, fleeting, but unmistakable. A small smile touches her lips, inviting yet reserved. He hesitates, caught between the desire to sit down and the fear of intruding. For a moment, he considers retreating, but curiosity wins. He chooses a seat at a nearby table, close enough to feel the subtle warmth emanating from her presence, yet far enough to maintain a respectful distance. His notebook rests unopened, forgotten, as his focus narrows entirely on her. After a few moments, she looks up from her book and, in a tone that's gentle but confident, asks, "Do you come here often?" The simplicity of the question catches him off guard, and for a second, he fumbles for words. His voice is quieter than usual, slightly hesitant, but sincere. Yeah? I like the quiet. And the coffee isn't bad either. He chuckles softly, embarrassed by his own awkwardness. She smiles again, a small curve of her lips that feels like sunlight slipping through clouds. I can relate, she says, closing her book. It's nice to have a place where you can just breathe, isn't it? There's a softness in her voice that invites trust, a subtle vulnerability beneath her composed exterior. He notices the way her fingers brush the edge of the table, delicate movements that seem to mirror the careful way she navigates the world. Their conversation begins cautiously, touching on trivial topics at first, books, coffee preferences, the ever-changing weather, but underneath, a current of curiosity flows. Each word, each pause, carries more meaning than they admit. He notices the warmth in her eyes when she laughs, the way her gaze lingers for a fraction longer than polite conversation requires. He feels a slow tightening in his chest, an awareness of her presence that's both comforting and electrifying. At one point, he accidentally spills a few drops of his coffee while gesturing, and she instinctively reaches over to help him wipe it up. Their hands brush, lingering slightly longer than necessary. The contact is innocent, yet it sends a small, quiet jolt of awareness through him, a reminder that the connection between them is growing, subtle but undeniable. By the time he leaves the cafe, they've shared smiles, shy jokes, and the beginnings of a mutual understanding. There's an unspoken acknowledgement that this is more than a chance encounter. Their first real conversation has built a delicate bridge between two worlds, his youthful uncertainty and her seasoned calm, and both of them leave with a sense of anticipation, a quiet eagerness for the next meeting, and the subtle ache of attraction restrained by respect, timing, and the gentle rules of civility. A week passes, and the male narrator finds himself returning to the cafe with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. He tells himself it's coincidence, but part of him hopes, quietly, almost guiltily, that she will be there again. The world outside is painted in the soft amber of early evening. The sun is dipping low, reflecting in puddles left from a recent drizzle. The faint aroma of coffee and warm bread greets him, and his heartbeat quickens at the thought of seeing her. She is seated by the window again, but this time, she's absorbed in a sketchbook. Her brow furrows slightly in concentration, the sunlight catching the subtle glimmer of silver in her hair. There's something so human and intimate about watching someone lost in thought, he realizes. It's a moment that feels both private and shared, a delicate tension that draws him closer. As he approaches, their eyes meet and hold for a slightly longer moment than before. He notices the faintest smile tug at the corners of her lips, almost imperceptible, but enough to send a warmth spreading through his chest. He chooses a table nearby, careful to leave space, yet close enough that the subtle sound of her pencil scratching against paper reaches him. There's a quiet intimacy in these small, unspoken details, the cadence of her breathing, the way her shoulders relax when she senses he's near. This time, he doesn't wait for her to speak. Summoning courage, he comments gently. That looks really good. You have a steady hand. His voice carries a mix of admiration and hesitance, and he feels his cheeks warm as he speaks. She looks up, her eyes softening, and a faint blush warms her cheeks. Thank you, she says quietly. I like to draw when I need to think. They slip into conversation more naturally now. It's lighter, more personal, but still carefully measured. She asks about his work, his sketches, the little things that give him joy. He notices the subtle way she tilts her head when listening, how her gaze lingers just long enough to make him aware of her attentiveness. Her hands rest on the table, relaxed but deliberate, and he finds himself studying them, the lines, the gentle movements, as if he could learn her story from touch alone. A quiet, almost imperceptible tension forms between them, not sexual, but electric in its restraint. When she reaches for her coffee cup, their hands brush briefly, and both flinch slightly, sharing a small, embarrassed smile. It's a touch that carries warmth and curiosity, an acknowledgement of the invisible thread that seems to be growing between them. He can feel the pull of her presence, the subtle way it alters his breathing, the warmth that lingers after she looks away. By the end of their meeting, the sun has dipped lower, casting a golden glow across the cafe. They part with a lingering glance and a gentle nod, each feeling the quiet stirrings of something new, something delicate. There's no rush, no pressure, just the slow, intoxicating awareness that their worlds have brushed together in a way that feels meaningful, tender, and quietly thrilling. As he walks home, he finds himself replaying her gestures, her smile, the subtle rhythm of her voice, realizing that the smallest interactions can carry the heaviest weight of emotion. A few days after their third cafe meeting, the male narrator receives a quiet invitation. She's hosting a small art exhibit at a local gallery, and she suggests he drop by if he has the time. The message is casual, yet beneath its simplicity, he senses a thread of trust. His mind races with anticipation, but also a quiet anxiety. This is the first time he'll see her outside the carefully curated bubble of the cafe. The gallery is intimate, with high ceilings and walls washed in warm ivory tones. Soft, classical music floats through the space, mingling with the faint scent of fresh paint and varnish. He enters cautiously, scanning the room until he spots her, standing near one of her pieces. She looks different here, less guarded, more relaxed. Her posture is open, but there's still that subtle air of grace and restraint. The warm light catches the highlights in her hair, casting a halo-like glow that makes his chest tighten unexpectedly. When she notices him, her face lights up with a genuine smile that reaches her eyes. "I'm glad you came," she says softly, stepping closer. The movement is effortless, yet every detail, the tilt of her head, the gentle cadence of her voice, feels personal, intimate. He senses a quiet invitation to cross an invisible threshold into her world. They wander through the gallery together, their conversation flowing with surprising ease. She explains the inspiration behind her pieces, and he listens, captivated not just by her words but by the way she gestures, the way her eyes shine when she talks about something she loves. At one point, she pauses near a particularly delicate painting, and there's a vulnerability in her posture, a slight slump of her shoulders, a soft inhale, as if she's revealing a piece of herself to him. Feeling emboldened by her openness, he says quietly, "I never realized how much your work reflects you." She glances at him, a faint blush coloring her cheeks, and the way her gaze meets his lingers a beat too long. The unspoken connection hums between them. He notices the warmth of her hand brushing lightly against his arm as she points to a detail in the painting. It's brief, almost accidental, yet it leaves a lingering awareness in his chest, a quiet acknowledgement of their growing closeness. As they move toward the exit, the evening light from the gallery windows casts long, soft shadows. She leans slightly closer, almost imperceptibly, her shoulder brushing his as she laughs at a small joke. The contact is fleeting, yet it carries a depth neither of them can deny, a mix of comfort, tension, and a shared understanding that their connection is evolving. Before parting, she turns to him, her voice soft and sincere. "I'm glad you came tonight. It means more than I can say." He feels the weight of her words, the gentle honesty that feels rare and precious. Standing there, with the hum of the city outside and the warmth of her presence nearby, he realizes that their relationship is no longer just chance encounters or stolen glances. It's becoming a space where vulnerability is safe, where trust can grow, and where quiet intimacy begins to bloom. As he walks home that evening, replaying every gesture, every subtle touch, he feels a sense of anticipation and quiet excitement. This is the point where emotional tension deepens, where the slow burn attraction is matched by mutual trust and awareness, and where the story begins to hint at the delicate dance of feelings neither of them is yet ready to name aloud. A few weeks pass, and the male narrator feels the growing weight of his feelings. Each encounter leaves him with a quiet ache of longing, a restless energy that hums beneath his everyday routines. Yet he hesitates, unsure if his admiration can ever translate into something more, or if the age difference and her composed, confident presence make the possibility impossible. The tension is private, internal, a delicate struggle between desire and restraint. He finds her again at the cafe on a rainy afternoon, the windows streaked with water and the smell of wet leaves drifting inside. She's seated at the same corner table, her hands wrapped around a warm mug, the steam curling softly around her face. For a moment, he hesitates at the doorway, watching her quietly. Her expression is thoughtful, almost wistful, and he feels an unexpected pang of protectiveness, a desire not just to be near her, but to understand her, to offer comfort in some quiet, unspoken way. Gathering courage, he walks over and sits down across from her. Their conversation begins as usual, polite, light, teasing at trivialities, but there's a subtle shift. His voice carries a note of sincerity and vulnerability that he usually hides, and she notices immediately, her gaze softening. At one point, he fumbles for words, the nervousness plain in his posture, and blurts quietly, I think about you a lot. More than I probably should. She freezes for a heartbeat, her fingers tightening slightly around her mug. The cafe's ambient noise fades into a blur for them, leaving only the tension and warmth of proximity. Then she exhales softly, a mixture of relief and acknowledgement. I'm glad you said that, she admits, her voice low, steady, yet threaded with something fragile. I've been feeling the same way, though I wasn't sure if I should. For a moment neither speaks, and the air between them feels charged, electric, intimate, and tender all at once. The slight brushing of their hands on the table, accidental but lingering, carries more weight than words could. He notices the subtle rise and fall of her shoulders as she breathes, the delicate curve of her lips as she glances at him. Every detail seems magnified, the warmth of her presence, the scent of her perfume, the quiet steadiness of her gaze. She hesitates, as if weighing her next words carefully. It's complicated, she admits. Her vulnerability is raw but measured, and he leans slightly closer, instinctively attentive, offering the quiet reassurance that he's not here to rush or pressure her. The shared understanding is palpable, a recognition that life experience, timing, and social perception are all factors they must navigate, but that doesn't diminish the authenticity of what they feel. Their conversation stretches, rich with pauses, small smiles, and subtle touches, his hand brushing hers briefly, her shoulder nudging against him as she laughs softly. It's a slow dance of emotions, unspoken desires, and the tentative courage to admit feelings without forcing the moment. By the time they part, the tension hasn't fully resolved, but it's transformed into a warmth that feels promising, tender, and profoundly human. As he walks home in the drizzle, replaying each gesture, glance, and word, he understands that this is the emotional peak, the point where longing, hesitation, and trust converge. The slow-burn romance has reached a moment of vulnerability where both are exposed, yet safe in the fragile trust that has developed between them. After their heartfelt conversation at the café, the male narrator and the woman find themselves navigating a new, fragile intimacy. There's no rush, no expectation, just a quiet curiosity and a desire to be near each other. Their interactions are more mindful now, every gesture carrying weight, every glance hinting at unspoken understanding. One late afternoon, he finds her at the small city park where she often goes to sketch in solitude. The park is bathed in the soft, golden light of a setting sun, and the scent of autumn leaves mingles with the crisp air. She's seated on a worn wooden bench, her sketchbook open, pencil moving gently across the page. When she sees him, her face brightens with a small, reserved smile, and he feels a familiar warmth spreading through his chest. He sits beside her, careful to leave a respectful distance, yet close enough to share in the quiet beauty of the moment. There's a comfortable silence at first, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and distant laughter of children playing. He watches her work, captivated not by the sketches themselves, but by her focus, the gentle way she holds the pencil, and the subtle way her eyes soften when she pauses to study the scene before her. After a while, she glances at him and asks softly, "Do you want to try?" He hesitates, then takes the pencil she offers. As he fumbles to mimic her strokes, she leans just slightly closer to guide his hand, her fingers brushing his knuckles lightly. The touch is brief, fleeting, but it sends an unexpected shiver of warmth through him. He realizes that these small, careful touches, hands guiding hands, shoulders brushing, shared laughter, carry more intimacy than words ever could. They talk quietly as the sun dips lower, discussing art, dreams, and the small intricacies of daily life. The conversation flows naturally, with pauses that feel comfortable, allowing each of them to absorb the presence of the other. When he laughs at a joke she makes, she leans back, her hand resting lightly on the bench between them, almost as if testing the boundaries of closeness without forcing it. He notices the quiet elegance in her gestures, the gentle steadiness in her voice, and the way her eyes seem to linger on him for a heartbeat longer than necessary. As the sky turns a deep shade of purple, she gathers her sketchbook. Before standing, she places her hand briefly over his, a subtle gesture of connection and reassurance. "I'm glad you came today," she says, her voice soft but genuine. He feels a quiet ache of longing mixed with gratitude. This is not a grand confession, but a moment of shared closeness that deepens the trust and emotional bond between them. Walking home, he reflects on the afternoon. Each shared smile, every gentle touch, and lingering glance has built a foundation of intimacy and respect. The story has moved past mere attraction. It has become a slow, deliberate dance of trust, warmth, and affection. They are learning each other's rhythms, discovering comfort in closeness, and savoring the subtle tensions and reassurances that make slow-burn romance so profound. This keynote sets the stage for the final resolution, where their connection will fully bloom, culminating in a tender, emotionally satisfying moment that ties together trust, respect, and mutual affection. Weeks have passed since their afternoon at the park, and the male narrator feels a deep sense of anticipation, tempered by calm patience. Their connection has grown slowly, deliberately, each meeting a small, meaningful step toward understanding and trust. There is no rush, no need to force moments. The intimacy they share exists in subtle gestures, shared smiles, and the quiet comfort of presence. One early evening, he receives a message from her, an invitation to join her at a small rooftop garden she visits when the city feels too loud. The evening air is cool, tinged with the scent of flowering plants and wet stone from a recent drizzle. As he approaches, he sees her already there, leaning lightly against the railing, gazing at the horizon where the sun is slipping below the skyline. The warm glow of twilight paints her features in soft golds and purples, making her appear almost ethereal. When she notices him, her smile is gentle, unhurried, and sincere, a smile that carries familiarity, trust, and a quiet joy. "I'm glad you came," she says softly. He feels the familiar warmth in his chest, the steady pulse of excitement mixed with comfort. As he steps closer, they fall into an easy rhythm of conversation, discussing everything and nothing, the words secondary to the shared space they inhabit. At one point, he reaches out, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. Her eyes meet his, and she doesn't pull away. Instead, she tilts her head slightly, letting him stay close. It's a simple, quiet gesture, yet it carries a profound intimacy, trust, acceptance, and the unspoken acknowledgement of the bond they have nurtured. The faint contact sends a ripple of warmth through him, and he realizes that moments like this, soft, unassuming, real, are what have made their slow-burn romance so meaningful. They sit together on a wooden bench, shoulders touching lightly, their presence near each other a comfort rather than a demand. She leans her head briefly against his shoulder, and he feels the calm steadiness of her heartbeat. Neither of them speaks for a while, content to share silence. The sky darkens, stars beginning to peek through the fading light, and the city hums softly below. It is a perfect encapsulation of their relationship, patient, gentle, and deeply rooted in understanding. Before leaving, she turns to him, her voice soft but steady. "I feel safe with you," she admits. "And I think I've wanted that for a long time." His heart tightens with gratitude and affection, and he responds quietly, "I feel the same." There is no grand declaration, no dramatic moment, just honesty, shared trust, and the warmth of mutual care. As he walks home, the memory of her smile, her touch, and the quiet intimacy of that evening lingers with him. The story concludes not with fireworks or sweeping drama, but with something more profound, the slow, steady realization that two people, despite differences in age, experience, and life paths, can find genuine connection, trust, and affection. Their relationship has fully blossomed into a quiet, heartwarming love, a love built on patience, respect, subtle desire, and deep emotional intimacy.